TIFU by accidentally causing a full-blown family crisis after inviting my ex to my cousin's wedding. I should have known better. I really should have. But in the moment, everything seemed fine. My cousin's wedding was coming up, and I had been out of touch with most of my extended family for a while. As a bit of backstory, I have a complex relationship with my family, and sometimes it feels like they're more drama than they're worth. But it was my cousin, and I knew my presence would mean a lot to her, so I RSVP'd. Then came the issue of the +1. Here's where I went wrong. I'm still very friendly with my ex, Rachel. We broke up over a year ago, but we've managed to stay in touch, no hard feelings, and have found a way to maintain a pretty solid friendship. I'd been seeing someone else for a while now, but Rachel and I were still in contact regularly. When the wedding invitation arrived, I realized I didn't have anyone to take, and I thought, why not invite Rachel? She's fun, gets along with everyone, and it's a wedding, so what's the harm? In hindsight, plenty of harm. I sent her a message, and she was excited about the idea. She agreed to go, even though she had her own group of friends, but this way she could get a chance to hang out with me too. It wasn't going to be a we're getting back together thing, more like two friends just enjoying a wedding. It had all the makings of a perfect evening, or at least that's what I thought. The wedding day arrived, and everything seemed to be going smoothly. I showed up early to help with last-minute details and catch up with my family. Everything felt normal until Rachel arrived. She looked amazing. She always did, but today there was something different about her. She was glowing, smiling that radiant smile I used to love, and it hit me right in the chest. For a moment, I had this odd feeling, like, what if we could make this work again, but I quickly dismissed the thought. I was seeing someone else, and I didn't want to ruin my evening or make things weird with Rachel. She was a guest, not my partner, and I needed to focus on the celebration. Still, I couldn't help but feel a little disoriented as she mingled with the crowd, catching up with family members I hadn't seen in years. The entire room lit up when she entered, and that's when I saw it. The look on my current girlfriend's face. Let me give you some context. My girlfriend, Emily, had known I was still in touch with Rachel, but I hadn't mentioned I was bringing her to the wedding. Why? Because I didn't think it mattered. Rachel was a friend, and I figured she wouldn't be a big deal. But Emily wasn't as understanding. She's more the cut ties and move on type when it comes to exes. To her, having Rachel there was a big red flag, and it wasn't long before she made that clear. Emily confronted me just after the ceremony, and she was visibly upset. "You didn't tell me you were bringing her," she said, her voice low but tense. I could feel the heat of her stare burning into me. I tried to brush it off at first, telling her that it wasn't a big deal, that Rachel and I were just friends. But the damage was done. She wasn't having it. At this point, my entire attention shifted from the wedding festivities to the tension building between Emily and me. Rachel was having a great time, chatting with everyone, enjoying herself, completely oblivious to the drama unfolding just a few feet away. Emily pulled me aside and demanded I explain myself, but it was too late. I could tell the situation was escalating quickly. She accused me of having lingering feelings for Rachel, of inviting her to the wedding as some sort of test, or worse, that I was trying to reignite something between us. I tried to explain, but Emily wasn't listening. She was hurt, and the more I tried to calm things down, the worse it got. My cousin, the bride, came up to check on us, probably sensing that something was off. When Emily saw her, she snapped, "Why did he bring his ex to the wedding?" The whole thing was turning into a spectacle, and my cousin was standing there, her eyes darting between me, Emily, and Rachel, unsure of how to intervene. By now, the entire situation had spiraled out of control. Rachel, who had caught wind of the tension, came over and asked me if everything was okay. Emily wasn't having it. She straight up told Rachel that she was inappropriate for being there, that she had no place at a wedding with someone else's boyfriend. Rachel, shocked and confused, apologized, but Emily wasn't done. She turned to me, in front of everyone, and said, "I don't want to be here anymore. You can deal with this." Then she stormed off. I was mortified. My cousin was furious, the guests were awkwardly avoiding eye contact, and Rachel looked hurt and embarrassed. She didn't know what was going on, and I had no idea how to fix it. In a matter of minutes, I'd managed to alienate not only my girlfriend but also my ex, and I had caused my cousin's wedding to go from a joyous celebration to a dramatic spectacle. The rest of the night was a blur of apologies and uncomfortable conversations, and needless to say, I wasn't able to salvage things with Emily. She left shortly after the fight and hasn't spoken to me since. As for Rachel, she was gracious about it, but I could tell she was disappointed in me too. I had put her in a position where she felt like she had to choose sides. I apologized to her privately, but she told me that she wasn't sure where we stood anymore. I get it. I messed up. I didn't think bringing her as my plus one would lead to such a mess, but here we are. To make matters worse, my cousin, the bride, has barely spoken to me since the wedding. She's upset that I made her big day about my personal drama, and I can't blame her. I've tried to apologize, but I can't undo the mess I caused. In the end, I learned that sometimes it's better to keep certain people out of family events. It's not about who they are, but about knowing when things can get complicated and when they should just be left alone. I should have known that inviting my ex to a family wedding, especially when I was in a new relationship, would be a recipe for disaster. Now I'm dealing with the fallout, and I'm not sure how I'm going to fix things with anyone involved. So yeah, TIFU by thinking it was a good idea to invite my ex to my cousin's wedding, and in doing so, turned it into a family crisis. I'll be dealing with the fallout for a while, and I'm pretty sure I lost a girlfriend and a lot of respect from my family over it. At least I learned my lesson, too late. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. TIFU by letting my dog destroy my life in front of my new girlfriend's family. This happened last Saturday, and I've been having a hard time thinking about anything else since. It was supposed to be a simple meet and greet with my new girlfriend's family, a casual dinner to introduce myself and make a good impression. Everything was set up for the evening to go smoothly. Or so I thought. Let me backtrack a bit. I, 27, recently started dating this amazing woman, Sarah, 25F, and after a few weeks of spending time together, she invited me to meet her parents. Her family is very close-knit and super supportive of each other. Sarah had mentioned that her family can be a little quirky, but nothing that would throw me off. Naturally, I was a bit nervous, but I wanted to make a good first impression. I spent the whole day getting ready, wearing a button-up shirt, which I never wear, and even trying a new cologne. Everything had to be perfect. Now, here's where I made my first mistake. I have a dog, Duke. He's a big, lovable, 90-pound Labrador mix with a sweet personality, but he's also a bit of a handful. He loves people, especially new faces, but he doesn't always know how to behave around strangers. He gets overexcited easily, and he's known to knock things over or jump up on people when he's excited. But despite that, he's a good dog, and I've managed to keep his antics under control, or so I thought. The plan for the evening was simple. We'd meet at Sarah's house, have dinner, and hang out with her family for a bit. After all, it was supposed to be a chill, low-pressure evening. I decided that it would be a good idea to bring Duke along with me. He's usually very well-behaved in familiar settings, and I thought it would be a nice gesture to introduce him to Sarah's family right away. In hindsight, that was the worst decision I could have made. I arrived at Sarah's house early, hoping to get a little time with her before her family arrived. We chatted for a bit, and I let Duke roam around the yard. Everything was fine. I was feeling pretty good about the night. Her family was supposed to arrive soon, so I tied Duke up outside to avoid him running inside when they arrived. That's mistake number 2. Once Sarah's parents arrived, they seemed really friendly. They shook my hand, asked me about my job, and we were having a pleasant conversation. Then, the moment I had been dreading happened. Duke started barking loudly from the backyard. He'd spotted her parents' car from the window, and I hadn't anticipated him being so worked up. I immediately rushed outside to calm him down, but by the time I got to him, he was already going full throttle. He was jumping around, wagging his tail like mad, barking even louder, and generally making a fool of himself. I tried to calm him down, but it was too late. As I turned back to Sarah's parents, I heard the unmistakable sound of something crashing. I turned around, and in the process of trying to yank Duke back into control, he bolted toward the house. I couldn't stop him in time. Before I could do anything, Duke ran through the door, pushed it open with his big body, and barreled straight into the living room. The door flung open, and my dog, in a frenzy of excitement, sprinted through the house, knocking over a table of wine glasses and causing a full-on cascade of broken glass. He didn't stop there. He then lunged toward the couch, jumped up, and started licking the face of Sarah's mother, who screamed in shock. Sarah's dad, startled by the noise, stood up too quickly, knocking over a lamp that crashed to the floor with a deafening thud. I stood there frozen, my hands still clutching the leash as I watched my dog tear through the house like a freight train. Sarah was mortified. Her parents were flustered. And I was standing there, the man who just destroyed their evening with his out-of-control dog. I finally managed to grab Duke by the collar and pull him out of the living room, but not before he managed to leave paw prints all over the white carpet and knock over yet another chair in his excitement. As I closed the door behind me and took a deep breath, I could hear Sarah's mom trying to clean up the glass while Sarah rushed to apologize for my dog's behavior. I don't think I've ever felt more embarrassed in my life. My heart was racing, and I couldn't figure out what to say. Sarah came outside and tried to reassure me that it wasn't a big deal, but I could tell she was mortified, too. "It's just a little chaos, no big deal," she said, but I could see the tension in her eyes. I didn't blame her. I had completely failed to make a good first impression. We spent the rest of the evening in awkward silence. Her parents were still trying to put everything back together, and Sarah did her best to play it off. I tried to apologize 100 times, but I don't think anything could make up for what had just happened. Every time Duke barked or made a noise from outside, it felt like a reminder of the absolute disaster I'd just created. To make matters worse, I wasn't able to salvage any of the night. When dinner was served, I was too uncomfortable to eat, and the conversation was stilted. It didn't help that I could see Sarah's parents stealing occasional glances at Duke, who was still sitting outside, blissfully unaware of the damage he'd caused. By the time I left, I was so ready to disappear. I told Sarah I'd give her space to hang out with her family and headed home. She texted me later to apologize for the awkwardness and assured me that her parents were just trying to laugh it off. But I could tell she was still uncomfortable with the whole situation. The worst part is that, despite everything, Sarah is still really sweet and says she's not upset with me. She told me I should have just left Duke at home, which, in hindsight, is absolutely what I should have done. I've learned a valuable lesson: some things are best left at home, and meeting the family should never involve an excitable dog with no sense of boundaries. So, to anyone reading this, if you're ever planning on meeting your girlfriend's parents, don't bring your hyperactive dog along for the ride. Trust me, it'll only lead to disaster. TIFU by forgetting my anniversary and almost losing my girlfriend over it. So, I guess this is my punishment for trying to avoid the obligatory anniversary chaos. Let me start by saying that I've never been one for dates. I'm not the guy who remembers every little milestone in a relationship, nor do I feel the need to celebrate each one. My girlfriend, however, is a huge fan of traditions. She loves celebrating anniversaries, birthdays, and even smaller, random things like the day we first kissed, the day we moved in together, and so on. I thought I could be the cool, low-maintenance boyfriend who doesn't need a party or gift every time a date rolls around. Boy, was I wrong. Our anniversary had been creeping up for weeks. I noticed little hints here and there, her mentioning it in casual conversation, talking about a surprise she had planned for me, giving me a hint about what I should be planning. I'm not an idiot, I could tell what was going on. But here's the thing, I thought I had plenty of time. After all, our anniversary was still a week away, and I was busy with work, friends, and, well, just life in general. This is where I messed up. I kept thinking that it would be fine if I just dealt with it later. Maybe I'd buy something at the last minute, maybe I'd do a simple gesture. Maybe I'd cook her a nice dinner and make it feel special. But that thought never turned into action. As the days ticked by, I kept pushing it off. Fast forward to the day before our anniversary. I had completely forgotten about it. It wasn't that I didn't care, I really do care about her, but I got caught up in my own world. She'd even sent me a text earlier in the day that read something like, "Hey, can't wait for tomorrow. Are you excited?" My response? Of course, I've been looking forward to it. I didn't even think about the fact that she was talking about our anniversary. That evening, we decided to go out for a casual dinner. I had no idea she was planning to dress up for the occasion, but I was in my usual jeans and a t-shirt. She was wearing this gorgeous red dress, looking stunning as always. I complimented her and we had a nice dinner, but I could sense something was off. The conversation felt forced, like she was waiting for me to say something, but I didn't know what. I kept thinking, maybe I'll say something special when we get home. Spoiler alert, I didn't. As we walked back to our apartment, she asked, "So, do you remember what today is?" I froze. My stomach dropped. In that moment, I realized the horror of what was happening. I tried to play it off casually with a "Yeah, of course, it's our anniversary. I was just about to surprise you." But she saw right through it. Her face went from excitement to confusion and then to disappointment. "Really? You forgot, didn't you?" I laughed nervously, trying to make up something, anything. But I couldn't. It was too late. She was already hurt. The smile that had been on her face a few minutes ago was gone, replaced by a mixture of frustration and sadness. "It's fine," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I get it. You're busy. But it really sucks that you don't care enough to even remember." In that moment, I realized I had failed. I messed up something that should have been a simple acknowledgement of our time together, and now I was standing there, fumbling for words. I tried to salvage the situation by suggesting we do something spontaneous, like take a walk, grab some ice cream, or maybe go see a movie. But she wasn't having it. "I don't want to do anything now," she replied, cutting me off. "I just want to be alone for a while." We made our way back to the apartment in silence. She sat down on the couch, staring at the floor. I had no idea what to do. I kept apologizing, but the words felt hollow, like I was just saying them to fill the space between us. It was a hard pill to swallow, seeing her like that, hurt and disappointed, when I knew that this wasn't just about forgetting an anniversary. It was about not showing the kind of care and attention that she deserved. After a long, awkward silence, I made the decision to go all in. I told her, "I know I messed up, and I get why you're upset. But I want to make it right. I'll do whatever it takes." She looked up at me, her eyes still holding that sadness, but also a glimmer of hope. "You can't just make it right with a quick fix. I don't want a last-minute gesture or a half-hearted apology. I want you to actually care. To put in the effort." And that was the turning point for me. I had taken her for granted, assuming that I could skate by without putting in the emotional labor that a relationship requires. I realized that it wasn't just about remembering the date, it was about showing her that she mattered to me every day, not just when it was convenient. The next morning, I woke up early and scrambled to fix the situation. I bought a beautiful bouquet of her favorite flowers, and I spent the next few hours trying to cook her breakfast. I wasn't much of a cook, so it turned into a bit of a disaster, but the effort was there. I even took the time to write her a letter, apologizing for my behavior and explaining how much she meant to me. I wasn't sure if it would be enough, but I needed her to know how truly sorry I was. When she woke up, I gave her the flowers and the letter. She read it silently, and I could see that she was still processing everything. It took a while, but eventually, she softened. She didn't smile right away, but she did hug me. "I appreciate this," she said, "but it's going to take time for me to trust that you'll actually remember what matters." We ended up spending the rest of the day together, not in some grand celebration, but just enjoying each other's company. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. And, honestly, that's all I could ask for. The moral of the story? Don't take your partner for granted. Don't assume you can just get away with doing the bare minimum in a relationship. Show up. Put in the effort. And for the love of God, remember important dates. Because if you don't, you might just lose the one person who actually cares about those things. TLDR, forgot our anniversary because I didn't think it was a big deal. My girlfriend got upset. I scrambled to make it right the next day. Lesson learned, never take your partner for granted, and actually put in the effort. TIFU by bringing my girlfriend to my family's annual game night bloodbath. This happened last weekend and I'm still dealing with the fallout. For context, my family has this tradition called game night bloodbath, a name that should have been my first warning. It started as a fun thing when I was a kid, just board games and pizza. But as the years passed, it evolved into this Hunger Games-style battle of intellect, deceit, and psychological warfare. My parents are both retired lawyers, my sister's a behavioral psychologist, my uncle was in military intelligence, and my grandma, God bless her, is sharper at 87 than I am at 30. Basically, it's a house full of sharks, and once a year, they gather for one reason, to win. The winner is determined by a gauntlet of games, Pictionary, codenames, Uno, Mafia, Trivia, and an original game my dad created called Psyops. It's not officially competitive, but unofficially, it is, and the victor earns the crown, a spray-painted Burger King crown that's been passed around for 15 years. You win it, you wear it for a year, and you bring hell down on the next game night. This year, I made the monumentally stupid decision to bring my girlfriend of 8 months, Claire. Claire is amazing, funny, sweet, and terrifyingly competitive. She once made a 12-year-old cry at a bowling alley because he cut in line. But she's also kind of not great at losing. Or bluffing. Or understanding when she's outmatched. I gave her a heads up, game night is intense, I said. My family doesn't hold back. She laughed it off and said, sounds fun. I'm in. I should have seen the disaster coming. The night started off fine. Everyone was cordial, Claire brought wine, and my family did their best to be welcoming. The first game was Uno. My sister stacked a +4 on top of another +4 and hit Claire with an 8-card punishment, and Claire smiled like someone who just added a name to her list. She recovered and even won a round. Spirits were high. Then came codenames. Claire and I were on opposite teams. She gave the clue space, too, and expected us to guess Mars and rocket. Instead, my dad chose alien and satellite, and Claire physically winced like she'd been slapped. She muttered something about brain-dead amateurs under her breath, but loud enough for everyone to hear. The room went quiet. My grandma gave her a look like she'd just challenged her to a duel. That's when I knew we were entering the danger zone. Next was Mafia. That's where everything went to hell. If you've never played Mafia, it's a party game where some players are secretly Mafia members, and others are villagers. The Mafia try to kill off the villagers, and the villagers try to root out the Mafia. It's all about lying and detecting lies. Claire was a villager. I was a Mafia. I knew I couldn't go easy on her or I'd get destroyed by everyone else, so I did what I had to do. I orchestrated an elaborate frame job against her. Faked tells, forged alliances, used my uncle's interrogate by omission technique. By round 4, the entire room turned on Claire and voted her out. She stood up, wide-eyed, pointed at me, and said, "You backstabbed me." I shrugged. "It's mafia." She didn't sit back down. She went to the kitchen. The rest of the night is kind of a blur of awkward tension and passive-aggressive comments. Claire returned eventually, but she had gone silent mode. She didn't participate in PSYOPs, the final game, and spent most of it scrolling on her phone while my family debated the ethics of psychological sabotage in board games. I won the crown, by the way. My grandma actually gave me a high five. After we left, Claire was ice cold. In the car, she said, "Your family is insane." I tried to explain that this was just how we show love, cutthroat board games and verbal sparring, but she wasn't having it. "You humiliated me. You made me look stupid in front of people I barely know." I told her, everyone gets humiliated. Last year my cousin cried when he lost Settlers of Catan to my grandma. It's tradition. She didn't laugh. We got into a full-blown argument that night. She accused me of valuing a plastic crown more than our relationship. I tried to say it wasn't about the crown, it was about legacy. That didn't help. We haven't broken up, but she's definitely not speaking to me much. She didn't respond to my memes. That's when I knew it was serious. Now I'm stuck trying to mend things while also dealing with my family, who has already edited her name into the official game night victims wall. It's a dry erase board in the basement. My sister wants to analyze her behavior for a psych paper. My dad thinks I made the right move. My grandma wants to send her a book on cognitive bias. And Claire wants to never set foot in my family's house again. So yeah. I guess I ed up by underestimating how normal people perceive my family's idea of fun. Or maybe I just shouldn't have mafia'd my girlfriend into social exile. Either way, the crown feels a little heavier this year. TIFU by accidentally sending a voice message of me screaming at my cat to my entire team at work. This happened 2 days ago, and I'm still considering quitting my job and moving to a cave in the Andes. For context, I, 29M, work remotely as a project manager for a medium-sized tech company. Our team is relatively close-knit despite being fully remote. We use Slack, Zoom, and sometimes WhatsApp for fast communication when Slack gets too cluttered. It's a casual vibe, but still professional when it needs to be. So, I'm working from home like usual. I live alone except for my cat, Beans. Beans is a massive, floofy, orange drama queen of a cat who absolutely thrives on chaos. This cat will open drawers just to toss the contents on the floor. He has mastered the art of knocking over precisely the one thing I need for the day, usually in the most destructive way possible. I love him, but he is the feline embodiment of entropy. Anyway, Tuesday morning, I'm on a tight deadline trying to finish a massive project report due to the higher-ups. I had about 3 hours of sleep the night before because I made the mistake of opening a bottle of wine in Skyrim at 10 p.m. just to unwind. I woke up late, half hungover, and immediately jumped into work mode panic. The first 2 hours of my day were a blur of caffeine and spreadsheets. I had my noise-canceling headphones on, and I was hyper-focused when I suddenly heard a crash from the kitchen that could only mean one thing: Beans had decided gravity was optional again. I tear off my headphones and rush in to find that the furry bastard had somehow opened the fridge door, I still don't know how, and knocked out a full tub of leftover tikka masala. It had exploded on the floor, my rug, the walls, and somehow, on the ceiling. Beans was now sitting in the center of the mess, licking orange sauce off his paw like he had just cooked the damn meal himself. I lost it. Like, unhinged levels of losing it. I screamed, "What is wrong with you?" followed by a string of very creative profanity I didn't know I was capable of. There was some deeply personal insult about his intelligence, threats of turning him into a hat, and a dramatic monologue about how I gave up my dreams of travel for this little chaos goblin. Here's where things go sideways. Earlier that morning, I had sent a short update via WhatsApp voice message to my team chat because my hands were full and I couldn't type. Apparently, in my rage-filled rush into the kitchen, I had somehow sat on my phone. Not only had I sat on it, but I had opened WhatsApp, selected the team chat, which includes my manager, 2 senior developers, an HR rep, and a few other PMs, and started recording. It caught the entire rant. The message was nearly a minute long. Full volume. Every single unfiltered, sleep-deprived, sauce-covered second of it. Including the part where I called Beans a furry little war criminal. I didn't even notice what had happened until about 5 minutes later when I returned to my desk and saw the WhatsApp screen. There it was. 1 minute, 1 second. Already marked as played by 6 team members. I opened it in horror. I wanted to throw my phone into the sun. I immediately started typing some kind of damage control message, something about sorry, that was meant for a friend, or haha, accidental send, but my hands were shaking too badly to form sentences. My brain was cycling between denial and despair. Then the first message came in. From my manager, I don't know what Beans did, but he deserves a raise. Then HR replied with, we do not support threats of feline hat-making. But that was the funniest thing I've heard all month. Another teammate just posted a gif of an orange cat knocking a vase off a table. And the memes started rolling in. So many memes. Someone edited a fake wanted poster for Beans with crimes against culinary peace listed. Another person spliced my rant audio over dramatic music and uploaded it to our shared drive under motivational speeches. It's still there. It's titled Beans Unleashed.mp3. Later that afternoon, we had a Zoom meeting. The moment I joined, everyone changed their background to various pictures of angry cats or tikka masala. My manager had Beans' face photoshopped onto Napoleon. To their credit, no one was actually mad. In fact, several people said it was the best morale boost the team had had in weeks. Apparently, I've become a kind of chaotic mascot for remote work frustrations. But I still had to give a presentation. Which I did. While someone played faint meowing sound effects in the background, courtesy of one of the senior devs. Even worse, HR messaged me privately after and said they wanted to use the audio clip as part of a work-life balance presentation. I declined. Politely. Firmly. While considering whether I could legally change my name and vanish into the Canadian wilderness. Beans, for his part, has shown no remorse. He knocked over a plant the very next morning and stared me dead in the eyes while doing it. I'm pretty sure he knows what he did. So now I live in constant fear of my own voice clip resurfacing during quarterly meetings. I am the guy who screamed at his cat so loud HR made a meme about it. Not quite the legacy I was aiming for. TIFU by accidentally destroying my neighbor's prized koi pond with a fart. Let me preface this by saying I'm not proud of any of what follows. I am a 34-year-old man with a decent career, a house, a good sense of responsibility, or so I thought. What happened this past weekend makes me question my place in polite society, and I fear I may never live it down in my neighborhood. So I live in a quiet suburban cul-de-sac in Oregon. My next-door neighbor, Paul, is a retired engineer in his 60s with a deep love for gardening and ornamental fish. You know the type, every flower labeled with a Latin name on a tiny plaque, Zen rock formations, a small wooden bridge over a meticulously designed koi pond with some of the most colorful, chubby fish I've ever seen. Paul is obsessive in the best way. He talks about his koi like they're grandchildren. Every day like clockwork, he feeds them, monitors the pH of the water, and filters out any leaves or debris that dare fall into his liquid kingdom. A few weeks ago, Paul invites me and my wife over for a little backyard barbecue. He's excited to show off his new addition to the pond, a temperature-sensitive waterfall feature that turns on automatically when it gets too warm, supposedly to keep the koi relaxed. Paul was practically vibrating with joy, explaining the mechanics of it while we nibbled on burgers and admired his garden like it was an open-air museum. Fast forward to this past Saturday. My wife was out of town for a girls' weekend, and I decided to indulge myself with one of my guilty pleasures, a full tray of supermarket sushi and a 6-pack of IPA. Look, I know it's a bad combo. My stomach is sensitive. But the call of mediocrity and alcohol was too strong. At around 2 a.m., I woke up with a stomach gurgle that could have registered on the Richter scale. I shuffled to the bathroom, did my business, and thought I was in the clear. But it wasn't over. Oh no, it was just beginning. By 7 a.m., I was bloated, miserable, and ready to walk off the cramps. The cool morning air seemed like a good idea. I wandered into my backyard in my robe, barefoot, sipping ginger tea. That's when I heard it, a gurgling, splashing noise from the other side of the fence. The koi pond waterfall had kicked on. I remembered Paul saying that koi can get stressed by temperature fluctuations, so he set up some kind of system to stabilize things. Feeling neighborly and a little delirious, I thought, why not peek over and see the koi while they're active? So I dragged over a patio chair, climbed up carefully, still barefoot, and leaned over the wooden fence like some kind of robe-clad garden spy. And that's when it happened. I felt a cramp like a twist of lightning in my gut, and before I could climb down or even clench, I let out a fart so violent it could have been classified as a sonic weapon. But this wasn't any ordinary fart. No. This was a bellowing, hellborn trumpet that echoed off the houses. And I was bent over the fence, pointing my fully exposed rear end directly into Paul's backyard like an airstrike targeting system. Now here's the thing no one tells you about koi, they're very sensitive to vibrations. And Paul, being the engineer he is, had just installed a new koi-friendly ultrasonic predator deterrent system near the pond. Supposedly, it emitted specific frequencies to scare off raccoons and birds. But what it didn't account for was a human rectal blast mimicking low-frequency threats. My fart triggered the system. I heard a series of beeps, followed by a high-pitched screech and the waterfall going full Niagara mode. Lights flashed. A sprinkler system engaged. And the koi, oh, the koi, they scattered like glitter in a hurricane. One of them literally launched out of the pond, flopping onto a nearby rock like it had been struck by divine judgment. I froze in horror as I saw Paul's back door swing open. He was in his robe, too, holding a cup of coffee and a look of total confusion. "What the hell was that?" he called out. I panicked. I jumped down from the chair and twisted my ankle. I yelped, landing in my rose bushes. He saw me. Oh, he saw me. Robe askew, barefoot, one leg in the air like a wounded flamingo, clutching my tea and moaning. He jogged over. I tried to explain, but what do you even say? Sorry, I farted over your fence and scared your koi into cardiac arrest? Turns out, my epic fart had overloaded the system. The predator alarm wasn't designed to reset quickly, so it got stuck in a loop, a waterfall on full blast, noise blaring, sprinklers flailing. Paul had to unplug the whole system to calm things down. 3 koi were injured. 1 required a vet visit. That's right, there are fish vets. And they are expensive. Paul was surprisingly calm about it, in the way that people who are quietly compiling evidence for a lawsuit often are. I Venmo'd him $400 for the vet bill and damage to the waterfall pump, but he hasn't responded to my texts since. Now I'm known in the neighborhood Facebook group, thanks to someone's Ring camera footage, as the koi kamikaze. I've become a meme. There's even a screenshot of me mid-fall in my robe with the caption, "When Taco Tuesday hits and the koi aren't ready." I may never be able to host a block party again. TIFU by accidentally getting my boss's wife banned from an international flight and almost starting an HR investigation over a cheese sandwich. This happened a couple months ago, but the full consequences only recently came to light. I, 29M, work in logistics for a large shipping company. It's a decent job, the pay is good, and we occasionally get perks like travel reimbursements when working overseas. My boss, Steve, fake name, is generally a good guy, mid-40s, intense, but fair. He's the type who's been in the company for 20 years and knows everybody. He rarely jokes, never smiles in meetings, and is always dressed like he's heading to a Senate hearing. Anyway, we had a conference in Amsterdam. It was a big deal. Logistics companies from all over Europe and North America were coming together for this international expo. Steve was going to give a talk about supply chain resilience, and I was in charge of coordinating some of the shipping displays, as well as managing the travel details for our team. This is where the cheese sandwich comes in. The night before our return flight, I was feeling adventurous. I had gone to this little hole-in-the-wall deli near our hotel and bought what I can only describe as a religious experience between 2 slices of sourdough. It was a locally made Gouda with some kind of spiced aioli and caramelized onions. I couldn't finish it, so I wrapped the half I had left in a napkin and shoved it in my carry-on to eat on the plane. The next morning, at Schiphol Airport, we met up in the lounge before boarding. I had checked us all in, me, Steve, and surprisingly, Steve's wife. I didn't even know she was in Amsterdam, let alone flying back with us. Apparently, she had joined him for the last couple days of the trip and was flying business with us on the same airline. No big deal, I thought. We get to security and go through the usual nonsense. I've got my laptop in one bin, shoes off, belt off, and of course, my bag with the now slightly squished cheese sandwich. This is where things start to derail. A Dutch customs officer flags my bag. Apparently, bringing dairy products, especially unpasteurized cheese, across borders is a bigger deal than I realized. They pull me aside, and I'm not panicking yet because I assume worst case, they throw out my sandwich and I go hungry. But no. They take this very seriously. Another officer joins and starts scanning my passport and asking questions in Dutch, then switches to English. As they're searching my bag, Steve's wife comes over, concerned. She's asking what's going on, and I say something along the lines of, they're going to interrogate me about cheese. I was trying to make a joke. What I didn't know was that Steve's wife is extremely high-strung and very concerned about travel security. She hears interrogate and starts panicking. She starts asking questions, loudly, about whether we're all going to miss the flight, if I've brought contraband, if this could impact the company's reputation. That's when security turns their attention to her. Now, I have to stress that she did nothing wrong. She was just overreacting. But she said the wrong combination of words, something like, "What if there's more of that stuff in our luggage?" while gesturing toward our group's suitcases. A security agent misinterprets this and suddenly decides to detain both of us. Meanwhile, Steve is trying to de-escalate, but the damage is done. We're led to a secondary screening area and kept there for 2 hours. Eventually, they confirm that the sandwich, which they destroyed in front of me like it was radioactive, was the only food product in question. I'm released. Steve's wife, however, had an even bigger issue. She had a secondary passport issue. Some kind of minor visa discrepancy because her original ticket had been changed last minute. The combination of the cheese incident and the visa issue led the airline to refuse her boarding. Steve was livid. I apologized profusely, explained it was a dumb mistake, and Steve just stared at me like I'd personally sunk his marriage. He stayed behind in Amsterdam with his wife while I boarded the flight alone, completely mortified. Now, this would have been a bad story on its own. But it gets worse. A week after we're back in the office, I get called into HR. Apparently, someone filed a report that I had smuggled a biological substance across international borders. That's how they phrased it. A biological substance. HR was required to do a formal investigation. I was suspended for 3 days while they reviewed the case. I had to write an official incident statement explaining in humiliating detail how I had bought a sandwich and didn't know the cheese was banned. Eventually, they cleared me, but not before several people in the office started calling me the cheese mule. Even now, 2 months later, I still get forwarded memes about cheese and airport security. Someone even put a wedge of Gouda in my locker last week with a little paper flag that said biohazard. Steve hasn't spoken to me directly since. Everything goes through email. His wife ended up rebooking a flight 2 days later, but apparently she refuses to travel for company events now, and rumor has it, she's pushing for him to transfer departments. All because I wanted to enjoy a sandwich at 30,000 feet. So yeah. TIFU by smuggling a cheese sandwich, getting my boss's wife banned from an international flight, triggering an HR investigation, and unintentionally becoming an office meme. TIFU by accidentally exposing myself to my girlfriend's parents over Zoom while trying to be romantic. This happened last weekend, and my soul still hasn't returned to my body. My girlfriend, Emma, and I have been dating for a little over a year. We're both in our late 20s, live in separate apartments, but we spend most weekends together. She's been pushing me to be more open and spontaneous in our relationship, which has led to some really sweet moments, and apparently, a catastrophic failure in judgment. Emma has a very close-knit family, and every Sunday they do a Zoom dinner. It started during COVID and just kind of stuck. Her parents live a few states away, her older sister's in New York, and her younger brother's in college. They all hop on at the same time, eat together, and catch up. I've been invited a few times and joined in twice before. They were really warm and welcoming, but I'll be honest, I hate Zoom socializing. Still, Emma asked me to join this past Sunday, and I agreed because I wanted to make a good impression. This Sunday was a big deal, it was her dad's birthday. So I had this idea. Emma was going to her place that morning and we agreed I'd Zoom in from mine. I figured I'd surprise her with something cute. Earlier that week, we joked about role-playing sexy waiter with a bow tie and nothing else. She laughed it off, but I could tell she was intrigued. So I thought I'd go the extra mile and show up on Zoom with just an apron on. Nothing underneath. It was supposed to be for her, a flirty little surprise before the rest of the family logged in. I spent more time than I want to admit preparing. Cleaned my kitchen so it wouldn't look like a horror show on camera. Made sure the lighting was decent. Even practiced holding a tray with wine glasses. I picked out this ridiculous apron that said "Kiss the Cook" on it, tied it tight, and felt like an idiot, but a confident idiot. At 6 p.m., I joined the Zoom. My plan was to hop on before anyone else and give Emma a cheeky surprise. But as soon as I connected, I saw 4 faces staring at me, Emma, her parents, and her sister. All smiling. All clearly already mid-conversation. I froze. Apparently, Emma had sent me the wrong time. She thought she told me to join at 5:55, 5 minutes before the call, but she wrote 5:45 in her text and never corrected it. So I was late, not early. Which meant I stepped into a full family gathering wearing nothing but an apron that barely covered anything, with "Kiss the Cook" plastered across my crotch. It took them all half a second to register what they were seeing. I looked like a stripper hired by a pervy family. Her dad blinked hard. Her mom gasped. Emma stared in open-mouthed horror. Her sister burst out laughing, which somehow made everything worse. I instinctively backed up, which only made the situation more catastrophic because the apron shifted, and I felt the breeze hit places that should never be breezed on a family call. I tried to salvage it. I stammered out something like, "Surprise. Happy birthday, sir," which in hindsight sounds like I was offering myself as a gift to her dad. Her mom dropped off the call. Literally closed the laptop. Her dad, to his credit, kind of chuckled and said, "Well, that's one way to make an entrance," and then immediately sipped his drink without making eye contact again for the rest of the call. Emma was mortified. She kept saying, oh my God," while I scrambled off camera like a wounded animal. I reappeared 2 minutes later in full clothes, hair messed up, sweating like I'd run a marathon. I tried to apologize, but everyone just sort of pretended it hadn't happened. Except her sister, who kept coughing to cover her laughter and dropped at least 3 jokes that night about chefs with bold presentations. The rest of the call was an awkward train wreck. Emma looked like she was going to crawl through the screen and strangle me. Her dad opened his presents. Her mom never came back on. I sat there in a hoodie trying to become one with my chair cushion. After the call ended, Emma called me separately. At first, she was pissed. Like furious. She said, "Why would you think that was a good idea?" And I had no defense. I genuinely thought I'd join early and give her a laugh. She was so mad she hung up. But here's the kicker, about an hour later, she texted me. Okay, now that I've stopped hyperventilating. I guess it was a little funny. We talked later that night. Turns out, once the horror wore off, her family found it more hilarious than offensive. Her sister told her it was the funniest birthday moment they'd ever had. Her mom still refuses to talk about it, but her dad apparently told a friend that his daughter was dating a guy who's either completely insane or really committed. Needless to say, I've been banned from wearing any surprise costumes on Zoom forever. Emma made me swear that from now on, I'll be dressed like I'm meeting the Pope anytime I join her family virtually. I don't think I've ever been more embarrassed in my life. I wanted to make a cute memory and ended up flashing her parents with my Kiss the Cook apron flapping like a loose sail in a windstorm. But hey, at least I made an impression, right? I still haven't looked her mom in the eye since. I don't think I ever will. Hey, friends! If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. TIFU by trying to impress my girlfriend's family with my cooking and nearly burning their house down. So this happened a few months ago when my girlfriend, now fiancé, miraculously invited me to her family's annual Labor Day weekend get-together at her parents' place in Vermont. It was one of those picturesque lake houses tucked into a woodsy area. Think cozy fire pits, hammocks, and a grill that probably cost more than my car. She had talked about it for weeks and how much she was looking forward to introducing me to everyone, her parents, her 2 older brothers, a couple aunts and uncles, and her grandmother, who apparently is a no-nonsense woman who could make Gordon Ramsay cry. These were her words. No pressure. I'd met her parents before, briefly, and it went fine, but this was the big leagues. A whole weekend with her entire family. In my infinite wisdom, I decided this would be a great opportunity to show them I was not just some guy dating their daughter, I was a man of substance. A provider. And apparently, a culinary genius. The first evening we were there, everyone was settling in, drinking beers, and prepping for dinner. Her dad mentioned they were going to grill some burgers and dogs, pretty chill. But I, in my hubris, offered to cook something special the next night. I had a signature dish, firecracker shrimp tacos with homemade slaw and chipotle aioli. I had made them for my girlfriend before and she loved them, so I figured, how hard could it be to scale up from 2 people to 12? Reader, it was hard. It was very hard. First mistake, I didn't bring any of my own ingredients, assuming a rural Vermont kitchen would be stocked with everything I needed. It was not. I ended up dragging her dad to a small local market 20 minutes away to find stuff like rice vinegar, sriracha, and fresh cilantro. He was polite about it, but definitely gave me a few looks like, what the hell is aioli? Second mistake, the shrimp. I hadn't accounted for how long it would take to clean and devein 3 pounds of shrimp. I started late in the afternoon, thinking I'd be done by 6. By 6:30, I was still elbow-deep in shrimp guts and sweating profusely in their tiny kitchen with no AC and one tiny oscillating fan that did nothing but circulate the scent of shellfish. Her mom offered to help multiple times. I declined each time like a moron. I was committed to the bit now. I had to prove myself. Third mistake, the deep fryer. They had this little countertop fryer, the kind with a metal basket and a lid. I'd never used it before, but I figured, hey, oil is oil. I mixed up my tempura batter, heated the oil, and started dropping shrimp in. For the first batch, things went okay. The shrimp came out golden and crispy. Spirits lifted. Then I got cocky. I overloaded the second batch. Too many shrimp, too quickly, which dropped the oil temperature, caused the batter to soak in, and created an insane amount of bubbling. Oil splashed over the edge. I reached for a paper towel to wipe the counter, and that's when my knuckles hit the fryer's side and knocked the whole thing off balance. It didn't fall completely, thank God, but it tilted just enough to slosh a wave of hot oil onto the electric stove next to it, where I had a pot warming tortillas. The oil hit the burner and whoosh, instant flames. I panicked. Like, deer in the headlights, total brain shutdown. I didn't think to cover it, didn't think to smother it, just instinctively grabbed the sprayer from the sink and blasted it with water. For those unfamiliar with grease fires, never do this. The flames erupted like a dragon had taken residence in the kitchen. The fire leapt up to the cabinets, smoke poured out, the fire alarm started screaming, and I shouted a string of profanities that would make a pirate blush. Her dad came running in with a fire extinguisher and put it out while I stood there, covered in sweat and batter, holding the useless sink sprayer like a limp weapon. The aftermath was ugly. One of their cabinets was scorched, the backsplash was blackened, and the smell of burnt oil clung to everything. Everyone had to evacuate the kitchen because the smoke was so bad. Her grandma just sipped her wine and muttered something about city boys and their fancy shrimp. I wanted to disappear. I offered to pay for everything, the damage, the cleaning, even a new fryer. Her parents refused. They were weirdly chill about it, even joked about it by the end of the night, though I suspect that was more out of pity than forgiveness. Dinner ended up being takeout pizza. I didn't speak much for the rest of the evening. The next morning, her brother, who's built like a linebacker and had said maybe 10 words to me up until that point, gave me a solid slap on the back and said, "Well, at least you'll never be forgotten." And somehow, miraculously, her family still liked me. Or at least tolerated me enough that they didn't ban me from future events. Her grandmother even offered me a cooking lesson, which I think was her version of extending an olive branch. My girlfriend, now fiancé, against all odds, still teases me about it. I've officially been banned from deep frying anything unsupervised. Her dad has since replaced the cabinet and put a fire extinguisher in every room. I learned 3 very important things. 1. Never try to impress people with a dish you haven't made at that scale. 2. Grease fires and water are mortal enemies. 3. If a grandmother offers you a cooking lesson, you take it. The fryer? It did not survive. TIFU by accidentally getting hired as a private chef for a cult, so this happened a few years ago, but I still wake up in cold sweats sometimes thinking about it. I was 27, a freelance chef just scraping by in Los Angeles. I'd been working private events, doing pop-up dinners, and occasionally catering for upscale clients. My old mentor once told me, "You're not a real chef in this city until you've cooked for someone so rich they think almond milk comes from white almonds." So when I got a call from a retreat center up in Topanga Canyon offering a 1-week gig cooking for their spiritual leadership circle, I was thrilled. They found me through my Instagram, which was full of plated avocado roses and turmeric glazed salmon. We had a quick phone interview. A calm woman named Eden said they were a spiritually progressive community focused on holistic alignment, and they wanted vegan meals made with intentional vibrational ingredients. I nodded like I understood what that meant and said yes. They paid up front via Venmo, half now, half at the end. That should have been my first red flag. The retreat center was tucked way up in the canyon, behind an unmarked gate guarded by a man wearing a linen robe and the most intense stare I've ever seen. He waved me in without a word. The grounds were beautiful, desert landscaping, wind chimes, and massive geodes everywhere. It was like walking into an expensive Instagram filter. Inside, Eden greeted me with a hug that lasted slightly too long. Everyone was wearing cream-colored robes and either barefoot or in handmade leather sandals. I was given a loose white tunic to blend energetically, and shown the kitchen, which was state-of-the-art, sub-zero fridge, quartz counters, handmade ceramic plates. I started prepping for the welcome dinner and noticed they had ingredients I'd never seen before: lotus root chips dusted with blue spirulina, bottles of moon-charged spring water, and herbs labeled in Sanskrit. As the guests arrived, I quickly realized this was not a normal retreat. No one introduced themselves with a name, just titles like the Vessel, the Awakened One, and Seeker 12. Everyone had weirdly symmetrical faces and whispered a lot. The Vessel, a tall man with a silver beard and freakishly white teeth, gave a speech before dinner about transcending mortal nourishment through sacred flavor portals. I served roasted eggplant with activated hemp drizzle and tried not to laugh. Night 1 was easy. People loved the food. I stayed in a little guest house on the property. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to rhythmic chanting and faint drumming. I peeked out and saw the group dancing around a bonfire, completely naked, rubbing mud on each other. I closed the curtain and prayed for daylight. By day 3, things got weirder. I was asked to start infusing the food with intentions. Eden handed me a list of words like ascend, unbind, and reveal. Apparently, these were to be meditated upon while stirring the quinoa. I played along, whispering unbind to a pot of lentils like a deranged wizard. I figured if they were happy and I got paid, who cares? Then came the anointment feast. I was told to prepare a 6-course meal for a special ceremony where the Vessel would receive his divine inheritance. No pressure. I went all out: stuffed squash blossoms, coconut foam, edible flower arrangements. As I plated the dessert, raw cacao tarts shaped like infinity symbols, Eden appeared beside me and said, "Remember, tonight he ascends." During the feast, everyone wore crowns made of vines and chanted between courses. The Vessel stood up, shirtless, with golden paint smeared across his chest, and announced that the final step of his journey was to consume the divine merge offering. That's when I was called forward. I thought they were just going to thank me. Instead, the Vessel held out his hands and said, "Brother, do you accept the honor of merging your essence into mine?" I laughed. No one else did. Eden stepped forward and whispered, "He's chosen you. It is the highest honor." Apparently, merge meant, well, no one would explain. The Vessel just stood there, eyes locked on mine, breathing like he was in labor. I was frozen. I had a spatula in one hand and a tray of turmeric crackers in the other. I said I needed a moment to gather my essence. I power-walked back to the guest house, grabbed my duffel bag, and got in my car. But the gate wouldn't open. I honked. Nothing. I got out and walked to the gatehouse, where the rogue guy sat silently, sipping some kind of glowing tea. I said I had an emergency and needed to leave. He nodded and said, "Freedom comes from within." I resisted the urge to scream. Eventually, I found a secondary service road behind the garden and took a chance. It wasn't paved, but my poor Honda Civic made it down, scraping the whole way. I drove straight home and blocked Eden on everything. A week later, I got a letter in the mail, an actual handwritten letter, sealed with wax. It said, "You ran from your purpose. The Vessel is wounded but forgiving. Should you ever wish to return and complete the merge, the gate will open." I framed it. My roommate still calls me Essence Boy. Moral of the story? If someone wants you to infuse quinoa with intention and calls you brother of the merge, maybe don't go up that canyon. But hey, they tipped 50%. TIFU by getting locked out of my apartment naked during a Zoom meeting with my entire department. So this happened last Friday and I'm still recovering from the trauma. For context, I, 28M, work for a tech company that went full remote about 2 years ago. My team has bi-weekly Zoom meetings with the whole department, 30 people, including our director, my boss, and several interns who probably now think I'm some kind of urban legend. It started as an innocent morning. I woke up late, had 10 minutes until the meeting, and decided to do a quick rinse-off shower to feel somewhat human before facing the grid of judging corporate faces. I live alone in a 1-bedroom apartment, and I've always had a terrible habit of walking around naked after my shower. Why put on clothes immediately if you're just going to sit in front of a webcam framed from the chest up? So I towel off, set up my laptop at the kitchen table, log into Zoom, and make myself a cup of coffee. Camera off, mic off, sipping my drink, occasionally unmuting to say, yeah, totally, and makes sense like everyone else pretending to listen. Then I realize I left my charger in the hallway closet and my laptop battery is in the red. Now, my apartment has one of those stupid auto-lock doors. You know where this is going, but I was a dumbass who didn't. I leave the laptop on the table, walk to the closet, grab the charger, and notice a weird squeaking noise outside. It's my upstairs neighbor dragging out their trash or something. Curiosity and the fact that I hadn't seen sunlight in 3 days compel me to peek through the door. Still naked, mind you, just holding my charger and a coffee mug like a deranged Greek statue. I open the door a crack and stick my head out. The wind catches the door like it's auditioning for a Marvel movie. Slam. I stand there, mouth open, naked, locked out, still holding my damn charger and now lukewarm coffee. For a full 2 seconds, I think, maybe if I scream loud enough, the universe will let me undo the last 30 seconds. Then I try the knob like it's magically going to work. Spoiler, it doesn't. My first thought, find help. My second thought, dear God, please don't let anyone else be in the hallway. My third thought, Zoom meeting. I left my camera off, right? I start to panic. I look like Adam after the fall, standing in my hallway with no phone, no keys, no clothes, and a mug that says Monday? More like no day. I consider knocking on my neighbor's door, but the only people I know on this floor are a sweet elderly couple and a college girl who already thinks I'm creepy because I once said nice dog to her potted plant when I wasn't wearing my glasses. I take a breath. I do the only thing I can think of. I tiptoe down the hallway, covering my junk with the charger cable like some sort of minimalist loincloth, and pray that the building's super is in. Now, the super's office is down 2 flights of stairs and across a small lobby that has floor-to-ceiling windows facing the street. I debate waiting for someone to show up. But time is ticking, and if my laptop battery dies, the Zoom meeting will revert to my last camera state. Which, as I slowly remember with growing horror. I turned on for a second to check the lighting. I break into a light jog down the hallway like a pale, caffeine-fueled Tarzan. I hit the stairwell, and thank every deity known to man that no one is around. I get to the super's office, knock with my elbow, because, again, hands are full and I'm not touching anything else with anything else, and wait. No answer. I knock again. Nothing. I consider breaking a window, faking a seizure, or just dying right there when I hear someone come out of the elevator across the lobby. I dart behind a potted plant. It's a woman with a stroller. She doesn't see me. I wait until the coast is clear and, in a desperate final move, go back upstairs, hoping maybe someone left the fire escape window open or the universe has decided I've suffered enough. At this point, it's been maybe 15 minutes. I finally hear movement from the elderly couple's apartment. I give in and knock, praying it's the husband. It's not. It's Dorothy, the 80-year-old queen of bingo and subtle judgment. She opens the door, stares at me like I'm the ghost of Christmas WTF, and says, "Oh my." I explain, stammering, red-faced, trying to gesture with the charger like a magic wand of innocence. She sighs, mutters something about kids these days, and lets me use her phone to call the super. He shows up 5 minutes later, amused and unfazed, like he's seen this exact scenario play out a dozen times. I shuffle behind him to my door, he unlocks it, and I re-enter my apartment as if returning from war. I plug in my laptop. The Zoom meeting is still going. My camera is on. I am in full, glorious, high-definition frame, completely naked, absent, and being screen-shared by some intern who apparently thought I had enabled a virtual background. The chat has dozens of messages. My boss is frantically demanding turn off your cam, while someone else typed is he holding a coffee mug? I immediately turn the camera off, slump into my chair, and wish for a meteor. I didn't leave my apartment the rest of the weekend. On Monday, HR scheduled a casual one-on-one Zoom to talk about best remote practices. The intern now refers to me as the naked prophet in our Slack meme channel. I'll never live this down. I also now wear pants. Always. TIFU by accidentally sexting my boss, and then trying to cover it up. This happened a few weeks ago and I've only now stopped dying inside long enough to write it down. For context, I, 27M, have been working at a mid-sized marketing firm for the last year and a half. I've always kept things professional, built a solid rapport with my manager, Laura, 34F, who is incredibly competent, always dressed to the nines, and intimidating in that knows 5 times more than you and is also 5 steps ahead kind of way. I had also just started dating someone new, Chloe. We'd been seeing each other for about 2 months, and things were heating up. We had a pretty flirty dynamic, and occasionally we'd send each other spicy messages. Nothing too crazy, but definitely NSFW and not something you want floating around on your company Slack. On this particular Wednesday, we were in the middle of a hectic product launch. Everyone was juggling 5 things at once, nerves were high, and the Slack channels were more active than usual. Chloe and I had been texting intermittently throughout the day. I was in a good mood because my presentation went well that morning, and she sent me a cheeky message along the lines of, "You looked hot in that shirt this morning. Bet you're even hotter without it." Now, being the genius I am, I crafted what I thought was a very smooth response. Something like, "Why don't you come over tonight and find out? I'll be shirtless, waiting for you in bed, but I might not be wearing anything else either." Yes, cringe. I know. But we were in that honeymoon phase where you think your terrible innuendos are sexy. Here's where the universe decided to ruin my life. I had Slack open on my desktop and my phone. Laura had messaged me about a campaign timeline, and her message was still open in my DMs. In the same window. Guess where I sent that message? Yep. I sent that exact sext, "Why don't you come over tonight and find out? I'll be shirtless, waiting for you in bed, but I might not be wearing anything else either." To Laura. I realized it about 0.3 seconds after hitting send. That sickening moment when your soul leaves your body, your hands go numb, and time slows down. I stared at the message in the chat like I was watching my own social execution in real time. I panicked. I tried deleting the message. But Slack, in its infinite wisdom, only lets you delete messages on your end unless the workspace settings allow otherwise. Ours, of course, does not. So I did what any rational, professional adult would do. I pretended it didn't happen. I closed the laptop. I literally got up from my desk and went on a 15-minute walk to scream into the void and consider applying for a job as a lighthouse keeper in Nova Scotia. When I got back, there was a reply. It simply said, "I don't think that was meant for me." I wanted to die. I wanted the floor to open up and swallow me. But somehow my fingers still worked, and I typed out a response that I thought would clear everything up. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. That was meant for a client. We're working on a Valentine's Day campaign for a lingerie brand and I was brainstorming taglines. That was one of them. Super inappropriate to send it in a DM, my apologies." I thought it was a brilliant save. It was not. Laura didn't respond immediately. For the next hour, I sat in absolute silence, waiting. Imagining every worst-case scenario. Then she finally messaged me again. She said, "You might want to rethink that story. Your tagline includes a specific invitation and refers to being in bed tonight. It doesn't sound like brainstorming." I knew the jig was up. There was no walking this back. So I came clean. I apologized profusely, admitted it was meant for someone I was seeing, and explained that I'd simply clicked the wrong window because Slack doesn't differentiate well between open chats. I didn't go into detail, but I made it clear that it was a personal message that went to the absolute worst possible recipient. Her response surprised me. "Okay. I appreciate your honesty. Let's pretend this never happened. But maybe keep work and personal separate moving forward. That was it. No HR. No formal reprimand. Just a quiet, terrifying acknowledgement that she now had a vivid mental image of me waiting shirtless in bed for someone who was not her, and that she chose mercy over justice. But it didn't end there. The next day in our team stand-up, Laura was all business. Professional. Polished. But at one point, when we were discussing the Valentine's Day campaign, yes, we were actually doing one, she looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Let's make sure the messaging stays appropriate for a professional audience. We wouldn't want to get too steamy." No one else caught it. But I did. I died again. Since then, I've triple-checked every message before hitting send. I no longer use Slack on my phone. I've trained myself to switch to another window before responding to anything remotely flirtatious. And every time I see Laura, a small part of me dies remembering that this powerful, intelligent woman has read a message intended to set the mood for my date night. The worst part? Chloe thought it was hilarious. She told her friends. They made a meme out of it. I'm now immortalized in her group chat as shirtless in Slack guy. Pray for me. TIFU by accidentally attending a funeral thinking it was a wedding, so this happened 2 weeks ago and I'm only now starting to crawl out of the hole of secondhand embarrassment and social exile that resulted from it. I hate 28M, work remotely in IT and recently moved to a small town in the Midwest to get away from city chaos. One of the upsides of the move was reconnecting with my distant cousin Sarah, 31F, who lives nearby and has a huge extended family that's always doing get-togethers, BBQs, and whatnot. She invited me to what I thought was her cousin's wedding on a Saturday afternoon. Now, I hadn't met this cousin and didn't ask too many questions. Sarah just said, "We're having a big thing for Emily on Saturday. You should come. Bring your appetite." To me, big thing and bring your appetite sounded like code for a wedding or at least an engagement party. She even mentioned there would be a gathering at the community center after the church event. Classic wedding format, right? So, I dig into my closet for the one nice outfit I own, a burgundy suit I bought during a wild phase in my early 20s. It's loud, yes, but I was thinking fun, quirky wedding guest, not deeply inappropriate clown at a funeral. I even went full over the top, slicked back hair, funky bow tie, pocket square, matching socks. I rolled up in my embarrassingly loud but lovingly restored cherry red 72 Cutlass, blasting Stevie Wonder, because I wanted to make an entrance. I pull into the church parking lot and immediately notice that everyone is dressed in black. I'm thinking, weird theme, maybe a really formal wedding? But it's the Midwest. Who knows, maybe they're goths. I strut in with confidence. Heads turn immediately. I think it's because I look so damn sharp. It is not. I step fully into the church and that's when I notice the casket. A literal, open casket. It's at the front of the sanctuary and people are crying. I freeze mid-stride. A woman in the front row gasps and clutches her husband's arm. A man in the back visibly shakes his head. Someone whispers what the hell with audible disgust. I'm standing there like a damn bottle of Merlot in a sea of oil slicks. Every inch of my outfit screams celebration, while everyone else is actively grieving. But I still didn't quite get it. I just stood there, trying to process why there was a casket at a wedding. That's when Sarah appears from a pew, eyes wide in horror. She speedwalks to me and grabs my arm like it's a life-or-death situation. In the whisper shout only Midwesterners seem to master, she goes, "What the hell are you wearing?" This is Emily's funeral. Her funeral. I can't even explain the wave of shame and nausea that hit me. Apparently Emily was her cousin who passed away, not her cousin who was getting married. I had completely misinterpreted everything. There was no wedding. There was only death. My brain tried to find an eject button from reality. I try to turn and walk out silently, hoping I can just become a legend no one ever identifies. But nope. On my way out, my dress shoe catches the edge of a pew. I stumble, knock into a flower arrangement, and spill an entire stand of programs. The programs scatter like confetti over the aisle, an aisle that had, until now, been somber and sacred. I try to scoop them up, apologize, but the damage is done. A crying aunt sees me trying to gather them and mutters, "Is this some kind of joke?" I whisper a broken, "I'm so sorry," and finally make it out the doors. I sit in my car, mortified, staring ahead and realizing that not only did I crash a funeral in what was essentially party attire, but I also brought a whole damn vibe with me like I was auditioning for a Vegas MC spot. I didn't have it in me to go to the reception/gathering afterward. I went home, changed into sweats, and ate 6 grilled cheese sandwiches in the dark. A few days later, Sarah texts me saying the family's mostly okay with it. Apparently Emily had a dark sense of humor and would have laughed at the whole thing. Her brother even joked that it's the kind of chaos Emily would have loved. But still, I'm now known, across this town, as that guy who wore a burgundy suit to Emily's funeral. Word has spread. The barista at the local coffee shop chuckled and said, "Hey, love the color red," with a smirk the next morning. I wanted to crawl into the floor. The worst part is, I got a letter in the mail from a woman who had taken a picture of me during the funeral. Not on purpose, she was taking photos of the flower arrangements, and I just happened to be in the background looking like a magician about to pull a dove out of a hat. She included a print of the photo in the envelope, along with a sticky note that said, "For your scrapbook." I'm not sure if it was meant to be sincere or savage. Either way, I now keep that photo in my sock drawer as a permanent reminder to always ask follow-up questions about vague invitations. Moral of the story, never assume. Always clarify. And maybe retire the burgundy suit for good. TIFU by accidentally sending a love letter to my boss. So, this happened yesterday and I'm still in disbelief about how much of a train wreck my life became in a matter of minutes. I'm a 29-year-old guy who works in a corporate office, and up until this point, I thought I had a pretty steady grip on my professional and personal life. Boy, was I wrong. I've been working under the same boss for almost 3 years now, and while we've always had a strictly professional relationship, I've developed a bit of a crush on her over time. It started off harmless enough. She's got this infectious energy that lights up the room, and she's genuinely funny. I noticed it more and more as the weeks went by, how her laughter could make even the most boring meetings bearable, how she always knew exactly what to say to make someone feel comfortable. But, of course, I kept it all to myself because, work boundaries. Plus, she's my boss. I never thought anything would come of it. Well, one night, I was feeling pretty down after a rough day at work and decided to vent to a friend. I sat down at my computer, opened up my email, and started typing a long message. This message was meant for my best friend, someone I confide in about pretty much everything. I wanted to explain how I had a crush on my boss, how I thought she might be giving me signals, because, let's be honest, sometimes it feels like she's flirting just a little bit, right, and how frustrated I was by the whole thing. I don't know what I was expecting from my friend, maybe some words of encouragement, or perhaps an empathetic "it's fine, you'll get over it," but that's not what happened. I poured my heart out into this message. I wrote about how much I admired her, how I loved the way she looked when she smiled, how I felt like I could talk to her about anything, and how maybe, just maybe, there was a chance she felt the same way about me. I was even silly enough to put in a little bit of a romantic fantasy at the end, like one of those cheesy romantic comedy daydreams where everything magically works out. Looking back, I feel like a complete idiot for writing all of that. But here's the kicker, I was so emotionally wrapped up in the moment that I didn't even think twice about hitting send. I wasn't really thinking about who I was sending it to. I just wanted to unload all my feelings and get some feedback. So, without any hesitation, I hit send and then immediately sat back to relax and wait for my friend's reply. Except the reply didn't come from my friend. A few seconds later, I saw the name of my boss pop up in the corner of my screen. It was in the from field of the email. That's when the blood drained from my face, and everything inside me went cold. I quickly checked the email's recipient list, my heart pounding in my chest, and there it was in all its horrifying clarity. I had accidentally sent the entire love letter to my boss. My stomach dropped into my feet, and I swear, for a moment, I actually thought I might pass out. I quickly closed the email, but it was too late. It had already been sent. There was no getting it back. I spent the next few minutes staring at my screen in utter disbelief. I opened the email again, hoping maybe, just maybe, I had imagined what I had just seen. But no, there it was, the love letter, sitting in my boss's inbox. I had no idea what to do. Do I immediately apologize? Do I pretend it wasn't me? Do I blame a typo? No, because that wouldn't make any sense. I was beyond desperate at this point, and my mind was racing in 1,000 different directions. I could feel my palms getting sweaty, my heart thudding in my chest like a drumbeat. I knew that the longer I waited, the worse it would get. So, I decided to take the plunge and address it head-on. I started typing an email, but the words didn't come out right. I wanted to explain, apologize, and try to salvage whatever shred of professionalism I had left. After what felt like an eternity, I finally typed out the following: Hi / boss's name, I sincerely apologize for the email I just sent. It was not meant for you. I had intended to send it to a close friend, but I made a terrible mistake. I can't explain how embarrassed I am, and I hope you can understand that it was an accidental message. I deeply respect you as my boss, and I truly hope this doesn't make things awkward between us moving forward. Again, I'm so sorry. Then, I did what any rational person would do, I hit send. Now, at this point, you might think the situation couldn't possibly get worse, but oh, it definitely did. Less than an hour later, I received an email from my boss. I opened it with dread, and here's what it said: / my name, thank you for your email. I appreciate your honesty, but I want to make sure you know that I value our professional relationship, and I don't think this will affect that. However, I think it would be best if we had a quick chat to clear the air. How about we meet tomorrow morning before work to talk? I froze. My mind raced through a million possible scenarios, each one worse than the last. What kind of quick chat would this be? Was she going to fire me? Was she going to tell me that I was unprofessional and couldn't be trusted? The next day, I showed up early to work, my stomach a ball of nerves. When I walked into her office, she was sitting at her desk with a calm, almost amused look on her face. I don't know what I was expecting, maybe anger, maybe awkwardness, maybe a lecture, but instead, she just smiled and said, "So, I'm guessing that email wasn't meant for me?" I nodded, my face turning bright red. To my surprise, she didn't seem angry or upset at all. In fact, she looked pretty calm and even a little sympathetic. She reassured me that she understood mistakes happen, and she appreciated how I owned up to it right away. There was a brief moment of awkward silence, and then she said, "Just so you know, I'm not mad at you. But I think we both agree that this is something we should leave behind us." I couldn't believe it. I had expected everything to fall apart, but somehow, she made it feel like it was just a minor slip-up. We even joked about how embarrassing it was, and before I knew it, the conversation ended without any major fallout. So, here I am today, still at my job, still working under the same boss, and miraculously, everything seems to be fine. No, things aren't normal per se, but we've managed to move past it. I'm not sure how, but she's been incredibly professional and hasn't let this impact our work relationship at all. Honestly, I still cringe every time I think about it. I'll never be able to look at my inbox the same way again, and I've definitely learned the hard way to double-check the recipients before I hit send. I'll also never be able to look my boss in the eye the same way either, but hey, at least I didn't get fired, right? TLDR, accidentally sent a love letter meant for my best friend to my boss. Thankfully, she was cool about it and didn't fire me. TIFU, by accidentally starting a fire in my apartment while trying to cook dinner. It all started like any other evening. I had been working from home all day and was looking forward to some peace and quiet once I finished my tasks. Cooking was something I usually enjoyed, but it was also something I didn't do often, especially not by myself. I wasn't a terrible cook, but I wasn't exactly skilled either. My repertoire included basic things like pasta, grilled cheese, and the occasional stir-fry. Nothing fancy. But tonight, I was determined to try something a little more complicated, something that I had seen on YouTube the other day that looked amazing: baked chicken with roasted vegetables. Seemed simple enough, right? Well, let's just say that the universe had other plans for me. I pulled out the ingredients: chicken, a bunch of veggies, olive oil, salt, pepper, and some herbs. I had everything I needed. So far, so good. I preheated the oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, set the chicken on a baking tray, and spread the vegetables around it. I drizzled olive oil over everything, added some salt, pepper, and rosemary, and put the tray in the oven, confident that I was about to create a delicious meal. I decided to relax on the couch and scroll through my phone while everything cooked. I'd set a timer for 30 minutes and had the full intention of checking it after that time to ensure nothing burned. But then I got distracted. An unexpected notification popped up from my friend, inviting me to an impromptu movie night. I quickly texted back, excited at the idea of hanging out with someone after a long day, and before I knew it, I had been lost in conversation about movies, new releases, and the latest gossip. About an hour later, I noticed something strange in the air, a faint smell of something burning. I jumped up, panic setting in. I rushed to the kitchen, opened the oven door, and was met with a rush of hot air and smoke. The tray was charred black, and the vegetables were practically ash. The chicken? Well, it had completely dried out, and the once plump, juicy pieces were now resembling something closer to a burnt, petrified sculpture. I quickly turned off the oven and yanked the tray out, but by then, it was too late. The entire apartment was filled with smoke, and I couldn't see a thing. I scrambled to open the windows and turn on the fan, but the smoke was relentless. I grabbed a towel and started waving it in front of the fan, hoping to get the air moving enough to clear the smoke out. But it didn't help. In fact, it seemed to be getting worse. The smell of burnt food was pungent, and I could feel my throat starting to burn from the smoke. I tried to grab the fire extinguisher from under the sink, but in my panic, I couldn't remember exactly where I had left it. After a frantic search, I finally found it, but it was too late to do anything with it. By now, the smoke was so thick that I couldn't breathe properly. I felt a sense of rising panic and realized that I needed to get out of the apartment, fast. I grabbed my phone, darted for the front door, and bolted outside. I stood in the hallway of my apartment building, gasping for fresh air and watching the smoke begin to seep out from under my door. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I couldn't believe what I had done. I had no idea what to do next. I didn't want to call 911 for something that seemed so ridiculous, but I didn't feel like I had any other choice. I reached for my phone and dialed the non-emergency fire department number, nervously explaining the situation to the dispatcher. I could hear the concern in their voice as they told me to wait outside while they sent a crew over. At this point, I was already feeling a bit like an idiot, standing in the hallway in my pajamas, but there was no turning back. When the fire department arrived, they were efficient but also a bit confused. It was clearly not an emergency situation, but there was still a significant amount of smoke coming from my apartment, and they needed to make sure there was no risk of fire spreading. They came inside, checked the stove, and confirmed that there was no fire, just a lot of smoke. But by the time they were finished, they had to open every window in the place to let the smoke clear, and it took a solid 30 minutes for the air to become breathable again. The smell of burnt food lingered for days after, and I had to spend hours scrubbing down the kitchen, airing out the apartment, and throwing away the charred remains of my dinner. To make matters worse, my neighbors were starting to gather outside their doors, wondering what had happened. A couple of them asked if I was okay, which only made me feel worse. One neighbor jokingly said, "Next time, you might want to check on your food before the smoke alarm goes off." I gave a weak smile and nodded in agreement, feeling like I had just made a fool of myself. The whole ordeal made me realize that I might not be cut out for cooking in the first place, or at least, I shouldn't be doing anything too complicated unless I'm paying full attention. I ended up ordering takeout that night, but I couldn't shake the embarrassment that lingered over me. I had nearly burned down my apartment, and for what? A mediocre dinner that wasn't even edible. The moral of the story is, sometimes it's better to stick to the basics, and always check your food while it's cooking. That night, I went to bed exhausted, my stomach grumbling from the lack of food, but I was grateful that the situation hadn't escalated any further. It could have been much worse, and I knew I had narrowly avoided a major disaster. Still, I'll never look at the oven the same way again. And, as for the next time I try to cook something fancy, let's just say I'll be setting alarms on my phone, asking a friend to keep me accountable, and maybe sticking to something a little less flammable. TIFU by accidentally sending my ex a love letter meant for my current girlfriend, so I, 25M, have been dating this amazing woman, Jessica, 24F, for about a year now. We've had our ups and downs, like any couple, but I really feel like I've found someone who gets me. She's funny, supportive, and we share so many common interests. Things were going great until last night, when I somehow managed to totally ruin everything by sending a heartfelt love letter I wrote for Jessica to my ex, Emily, 25F. Let me explain how this happened, because it's one of the dumbest things I've ever done, and I'm still sitting here wondering how I even allowed it to happen. A little backstory: Emily and I were together for almost 4 years, but we broke up about a year and a half ago. The breakup wasn't messy, but it was definitely painful for both of us. It took a while to get over each other, but we eventually moved on. Emily has since started dating someone else, and I'm with Jessica. We're both in happy relationships, but we still stay in touch occasionally. I would say we're on good terms, though we don't talk much anymore. Just an occasional text here and there to check in, catch up, and whatnot. Nothing too serious, but I guess it's a polite level of friendship. Now, let's get to the part where I mess up. I had been working on a surprise for Jessica for the past couple of weeks. I'm not really the most romantic guy, but I wanted to do something special for our anniversary. So, I wrote her a long, sappy love letter. It took me a while to get it just right, perfect words to convey my feelings. I was proud of it. I wanted to tell her how much she meant to me, how much she had changed my life, and how much I was looking forward to our future together. I spent hours drafting and revising the letter, making sure it was perfect. Once it was finished, I saved it as a draft in my notes app, knowing I would send it to her at the right moment. It wasn't going to be a grand, public gesture, just a quiet, intimate thing for her to read at home. But here's where things go wrong. The other night, I was sitting on the couch, texting with Jessica and Emily. I know, texting my ex, right? I don't know why I do it, but we've got this let's be civil thing going on. Anyway, I had been chatting with both of them, and after a while, I got distracted. I had a notification from Emily, so I opened it up. We were talking about a recent trip she went on with her new boyfriend. I was happy for her, and we were reminiscing about some funny stories from our time together. I didn't think much of it when I got a text from Jessica asking if I had finished the letter yet. That's when my brain started to scramble things. I had just gotten back from a long day at work and was mentally exhausted, so I wasn't thinking clearly. I had my phone open, and I was in the middle of texting both women. I also had the love letter in my notes app, which was open because I had been editing it earlier. Somehow, in the chaos of all the messages, I accidentally copied the love letter from my notes app and pasted it into the text message to Emily instead of the one I had been typing to Jessica. Now, you're probably wondering, how could you possibly make that mistake? I have no idea, honestly. I guess I was just in autopilot mode. I'd been talking to Emily about some light-hearted stuff, and then I see this big, mushy love letter appear in the message thread. The worst part? I didn't realize it was the wrong letter until after I hit send. By then, it was too late. I sat there in horror as the little delivered notification popped up on my phone. For a few seconds, I just stared at it, completely paralyzed. My heart dropped into my stomach. I had just sent the most romantic and personal message I've ever written, to my ex. The one person who, despite everything, still knows how much I care about her. It wasn't just an awkward mistake. It was a huge, cringeworthy blunder. Immediately, I started typing an apology message to Emily, but she was quick to respond with a message of her own. Not sure if this was meant for me, but I'm really flattered, and also, I'm a little confused. I don't even know why I typed this out, but in a panic, I wrote back, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. That was supposed to be for Jessica. I got the threads mixed up. I didn't mean to send that to you." And then, to make matters worse, Emily responded with, "Wow, okay. I'm not sure how to respond to this, but thank you, I guess. Maybe just don't send that stuff to me anymore. It's kind of awkward." I felt like I was being slowly buried alive under a pile of my own embarrassment. I honestly didn't know what to say anymore. Emily wasn't being mean about it, but I could tell she was uncomfortable. The whole situation felt so weird. At this point, I knew I had to deal with Jessica. There was no way I could just ignore what happened. I opened up the text thread with her, typed out a message that said, "Hey, I just realized I made a huge mistake. I accidentally sent you the wrong letter, the one I was writing for you, but I sent it to Emily by accident. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to mess things up." Jessica replied almost immediately, "What are you talking about? I'm so confused. What letter?" My stomach churned as I read that. I quickly explained everything to her, but I could tell she was upset. She wasn't angry, but she was definitely hurt. I had just made a huge misstep by involving my ex in something that was supposed to be for her. She didn't understand why I'd kept in touch with Emily so much, and it was hard to explain without sounding like I was making excuses. To cut a long story short, after a really awkward conversation, Jessica told me that she needed some space to think things over. I spent the rest of the night texting both women and trying to explain myself, but I think I've created a huge mess. Emily and I are definitely not going to be texting like that again, and as for Jessica, I'm hoping she can forgive me, but I'm not sure if she will. I've learned my lesson: don't be stupid, don't text your ex too much, and definitely don't send love letters meant for your current girlfriend to the wrong person. I'm in a bad place right now, and I really hope I haven't ruined things for good with Jessica. So, yeah. TIFU by sending a love letter meant for my girlfriend to my ex, and now I'm pretty sure I'm about to lose both of them. Wish me luck, I guess. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.